Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of 18th Avenue Podcast. I am your host, Rico Bottles,
And Stephanie Mosher.
and today we are here to discuss pedophilia and also a little bit about what's been going on in Steph's life. I guarantee you it
Not
is.
pedophilia.
That's great. I know that it's definitely important. And as you know, if this is your first time joining us here on the podcast, be sure to subscribe to us. We are on every single platform that you can think of, unless there's one that blew out of nowhere this morning that I've never heard of. Then, of course, I don't know about that. But you can find us on Spotify, Anchor Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all these other different podcasts. I can even on your mama's podcast. We're everywhere right now. So make sure to follow us on the YouTube channel as well as on Instagram. Today, joining me here is my very special guest and a good friend as well, Stephanie Mosher. So today we're just going to be talking about pedophilia and what's been going on in Steph's life, as I said before. Stephanie, welcome to the show. How are you feeling?
Thank you. I'm good. And I wanted to say congratulations. I didn't recognize that you were on all of those platforms. And I know you've been working at this for quite some time. So good for you.
Oh, accolades. Yeah, no, I'm actually very excited that they're finally on there because then I don't always have to send people to YouTube. I can simply say, look, we're on every platform, just wherever you listen to your podcast, look for 18th Avenue Podcast, and we'll be right there waiting for you. So thanks for coming to the show. I know it's a little early here in Calgary. It's about 11 a.m. over here. But it's
Not
nice
early for
day.
me. It's nice.
It's warm, though, eh?
Beautiful.
I feel like we got lucky. I wasn't sure if we would have shade in this area, but we do, so this is perfect.
For at least another branch.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'd be out of here before then. So, Stephanie, what have you been up to? I mean, so much is going on now. We're somewhat out of quarantine officially, but unofficially. How has the whole quarantine thing been for you? And yeah, how are you living?
I'm living well. I feel like this was just a huge pause moment. A huge shared identity crisis as well that I've been going through personally, but I also feel that so many people have been going through while they're not being expected to be productive or have any kind of expectations on them for outcome. It's a really big shift because our entire culture is based on the outcomes and not the process. So I've been really savoring just being and not doing in a traditional sense. So kind of sounds weird. I've mostly been digging holes in my backyard.
You've been digging holes? You gardening?
Well, I garden, and I wanted to learn
Nice.
permaculture, so I've been learning a lot and applying the concepts of permaculture, which is permanent agriculture, in a way that is self-sustaining, utilizes all of just everything, and is a symbiotic relationship to allow us to grow our own food. So fundamentally, I think that's important, and I wanted to learn that. But I've also been excavating a root, like a massive 52-year-old pine tree root, and it's been like a wax on, wax off process for me, just getting in there. And I was curious. I wanted to transplant some grass underneath it after my tree got cut down, and all the pine needles were there, and it's very acidic. So I needed to get all of that out before I could move the grass. But then as I started clearing it out, this root started to emerge, and it was like a kraken, like coming out of the earth. And I just got curious and kept moving dirt. And next thing you know, I've been in there for months, just digging, and I've got this entire root, and I'm turning it into an art installation.
Wow. Well, congratulations, Steph. I mean, I grew up. I was born in the country, so my father had this huge plantation. It was like he grew everything on there, anything from sugarcane to like potatoes to like cassava to yam and all these different crops. So as a kid, he also had a rice farm too. So as a kid, I know.
Wow.
People just don't know about me. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So as a kid, like because I grew up on the farm, pretty much I was born there. As a kid, I would go around, and that's kind of like what the earlier job was for me, planting shit. So it's kind of cool that you're at this point in your life where you're planting, but you're probably doing it the right way because you have the terminology for it. I was just planting rice.
Well, you know what? I've been doing this for a few years now,
Yeah.
and just trying to get better at it. I think that one of the things that every single person in our communities could be doing is reducing the burden we have on the system we rely on.
Right.
By doing that, we will eventually make it so that we can hopefully reduce taxes and empower more people within our citizenship to take care of their fundamental needs, and that will be a win for everyone.
Is that important?
being able to understand how to grow our own food and take care of ourselves, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. What if after going to school, every child understood their own emotions and how to communicate, knew how to provide their own food, understood proper hygiene and how to clean things, ended up getting some humility by doing these things, getting in the grass. Like, it's really interesting that in our culture, we have these status symbols that indicate that we do not work, like fake fingernails. Like these things that, oh, well, by virtue of having these things, that proves that somebody does that for me. What a strange thing. We have made yards popular, useless space, when they could be producing food for everyone. It is a bylaw. You're not allowed to have a garden in your front yard. You're not allowed to provide your own food in the front yard. What are we trying to do? Make people empowered and feel good and able within their communities? Or are we trying to force people to rely on the systems that have been made for them?
But I think also too, in North America, the way things are set up, is so that you don't have to do that because we have people that can do it for you.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
And that's just the way things are set up. But I often think like, if you were to take this idea to like India or any other foreign lands like that, and you try to educate people on how to grow their own stuff, I think they would just kind of laugh at you because these are things they grew up doing anyway.
Yeah, they'd be like, Ayurvedics, like, we understand this better than you guys.
But I also think that what you're doing is very important as well. And I wish that more people did it, because I think one of the things that we can all take away from it is healthy eating, healthy dieting. Plus, you're getting exercises, and you're getting some sun indeed, as opposed to sitting in the house all day and watching Kim Kardashian, which is not bad. I'm not knocking her. She makes a lot of money, and the family looks good, so I'm not knocking her at all.
She's also is becoming a lawyer and is working to try to help free people who are wrongfully convicted. I think that's very honorable.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, there's she was kind of circulating the net recently for her next case that she's working on. I believe she's working on a case that involves C Murder, whom is the brother to Master P from the No Limit Soldier. He was convicted of murder years ago, a murder that has been proven that he didn't do, and that the actual murderer is actually out there, but yet and still he's serving time for it. And Twitter was saying, I think Little Boozy made a comment saying, look, if you free C Murder, black people are so funny, eh? It's like, if you free my dog, listen, Kim, everything else I've ever said about you that was negative, it's eradicated.
You're absolved.
It's gone. It's out. You are one of us now, so it's interesting to see. So I hope, because I grew up listening to those guys anyway, so I hope that he gets free at some point.
Yeah. I hope that we create a system where you actually get justice through law. It's a huge, huge problem. I'm certainly not a professional to speak to it, but there are a lot of organizations right now that are putting forward recommendations saying, if we actually want to keep criminals off the street, if we actually want justice, if we actually want to help facilitate people getting out of those criminal behaviors and pathways, then we need reform. And they're putting a lot of ideas forward, which I could go on an entire tangent on one of my ideas, but there's a lot of people working towards this, because our system should allow us to get a sense of trust and real justice. And when innocent people are behind bars for something and the perpetrator is loose, nobody's winning.
No, you're absolutely right.
Which segues well into our topic.
No, absolutely. And the conversation that we were having as well is that, clearly we didn't go to school for this subject, but at the end of the day, as human beings, we spent our lives around these subjects. So in retrospect, you go to school, they say, what, you need 10,000 hours to become a master at something? Well, we spent our whole life around these things and on various subjects, just seeing it within our community. We know what injustice looks like. So at the end of the day, our opinion is just as valuable as someone who has spent their entire lives studying this, although they might have all the criteria in terms of the terminology and the know-how and things like that. But I think we know what injustice look like and what a social cause when it's time to stand up and fight for something should look like. But I also wanted to ask you, like, so besides gardening, what else have you been doing throughout this whole current thing, and how did it sort of like impact your own personal life? What growth have you gained from that?
I've been spending a lot of time in solitude, being alone, thinking and reading and trying to figure out what I understand the world to be and to mean. It seems very weird because everybody asks, "What have you been doing?" And I don't have an answer for that, because what I've been doing is being, and in being I've been processing and taking a lot of time to understand my motivations and my understand of the presuppositions that frame our society and allow our morality to grow. So these are kind of big topics I've been grappling, but spending it alone, thinking, feeling, being.
That's great. That's great. I like that. Sometimes we just need to be left alone, process things.
And grounding, like just being, I've been, like I said, digging this root. I've been in a hole digging for hours every day, just removing layers of this root and revealing layers of my mind and my spirit and my being that I didn't even recognize. Like this root has been growing for 52 years, pulling nutrients into it, to its trunk so that it can be and provide, you know, cones and propagate itself. And what have I been doing? What things am I reaching myself out into and pulling back in to create a strong me? You know, it's strange to try to explain, but I feel like I've been becoming a lighthouse.
I get it. It's like digging for the truth, for answers, for self-awareness, for just to be more informed and self-liberation, so that you're not caving to all the chaos and disorder that is going on around us.
Well, you know what? I think I've been recognizing with the way that information has been shared over the COVID pandemic and the amount of fear that they want us to have, the amount of information that they're failing to share to empower us and enable us has really made me think like, this isn't right. And I want to see change, but we can't change the world unless we can change our world. So I've been taking a lot of time to think, what can I do better? What can I do differently? How am I thinking about things that I really need to adjust? You know, right on the back end of this COVID pandemic came a massive movement about racism. And I'm a privileged white person who have just had the opportunity to learn so much about little subtleties of racism and how they've affected us. And then, you know, once again, going into that context of morality, why are these? Where are these coming from? How can I change what I've taken in and pulled into who I am and let go of what isn't working and move forward in a way that's positive?
No, it's very important. It's very important, everything you said. I think the whole quarantine and COVID has really changed a lot of things for people. Well, I would hope anyway. I mean, for me, for the first time since being here, I was telling a friend the other day that for the first time since being here, I can finally do what I came here to do, you know, which is not leaving and going in the middle of nowhere to work and then come home. Maybe I'm off for like a month, but then my body is still like in work mode, and it's not in creativity mode, and I can't think creativity. So one of the things that I've been able to draw out of this entire experience is being able to finally do these things that I said I wanted to do and put myself out there. So, and now we're doing that. So this is perfect. This is perfect timing. We can move into actually we finish this first 20 just on that, then we'll move into that. Yeah, so no, it's been good. But what would you say has been the greatest lessons that has come out of this experience for you?
That's a really good question. I would say one of the most profound lessons for me has really been connecting to my understanding of God, actually. I spent a lot of, well, first of all, I didn't have a religious upbringing at all. So my father didn't want me to be exposed to stories I didn't understand until I was old enough to break them down a little bit. So I didn't get introduced to religion at all until I watched the movie Prince of Egypt. That was the first religious story I'd ever heard in my life. That was Moses, right? Parting the seas. And that's an incredible story. And so basically from the start of COVID, I started to listen to Dr. Jordan Peterson's biblical series. And he breaks down the stories of Genesis to understand how religion is a framework of our society and how it has affected every single one of us as we know the world today. But then to break down these little pieces to know the metaphor that it is. These stories aren't, Cain and Abel. This isn't an actual story about brothers who one was murdered and, like with real people. This is a metaphor for the human experience and how we relate to a deep sense of jealousy, to a deep sense of resentment, for a deep sense of frustration, and the way we tend to destroy our own ideal. So that has actually been a huge exploration for me, and recognizing these stories as metaphor in a religious context, both from Genesis and from the Quran, and then deciding for myself how I understand these to mean for my life now and how I feel about God. And that's been, to go from somebody who doesn't understand why people allow religion to motivate them to have a deep sense of connection to God, that's a huge change. But my understanding of God is not within a framework of religion at all, and it is purely from here, which I think is the biggest problem with religion, is that it came from some man's interpretation, some person's interpretation of God, and now we've created a world where there is the world, and there's the natural way, and then there's civilization, man's way. Do you know the definition of civilization is a clearing in nature? The definition of what we strive for is to detach from that which brings us life. Isn't that so strange? So I guess to answer your question, connecting to God has been my biggest lesson and a biggest change for me in my world, and also given me such a sense of trust in myself that I'm going to figure it out no matter what, because I do feel that the construct of being that I'm within is framed by an ultimate truth, and that just gives you guidance.
I think that's beautiful. I like where you took it with the Cain and Abel story. I never thought about that before, but I think that was well said and beautifully put. I think that whenever people frown on religious stories and call it bogus, whatever, but I think there's always, the Bible is one of the 5 top books ever written of all time, because it's poetic. It's whatever it is you want it to be, really. You can draw whatever conclusion for it. So I think it's absolutely important that you draw that. Much like yourself, my mother was the one who introduced me to religion. Prior to that point, I didn't know anything about religion.
And how old are you?
I was probably, I say 5, 6 at the time. So when I didn't know anything, that sort of, for me, it was like, oh, cool. And I remember she would like teach me the Bible and read certain passages to me and then try to analyze that. Like, I don't go to church today, but I don't go to church because I hate God, even though that's what a lot of religious people say when you don't go to church. It's like, oh, you don't go to church, clearly you're not worshiping God. But God got nothing to do with the building. He's not even there, because much like you indicated, a lot of it is just people personal. They take this very human being was so destructive, like you said with the Cain and Abel thing. We take this very beautiful thing and then we rip it apart. We turn it into something for our own personal gain, which is even more messed up, right? And we shouldn't do that. And if we didn't do that, I don't think we would have half the issues today. But then we wouldn't have rich people.
Oh, so you think that greed is what starts? Like, I don't understand how that ties into religion. What did religion say about greed? Because all religious texts basically explain sharing and like keeping for
the
everybody.
religion is not the problem. The people that are practicing religion. So when you look at it, slavery started, the Roman Catholic were the first one to promote slavery. They were the first one to have slaves, right? So they were also the first one, like the first slave that was shipped overseas to the UK, I think was between like 100 to like 500 slaves. And that was for the Roman Catholic, right? That was for the church, where people go to get religion. So the Bible itself isn't the problem. The people practicing it have always figured out a means to make money out of it. And once they turn it into capitalism, now we have a situation where, oh, it's no longer about religion anymore. But we want you to believe that it is still about religion. And we want you to come to church so that you can give us the little you have. Why is there so many why is there so many churches in poor neighborhoods? Why is it that you can't go to the suburb and see like 100 churches, but you go to like the broken down community because these people, they're struggling and they don't have much, and these evil pastors still believe that it's necessary to go and give them false hope. It's the only place where a community member will go to the pastor and say, hey, pastor, I have no food. And the pastor will say, oh, don't worry, I'm going to pray. God will answer your prayer. But when the pastor wants money, he comes to the community and say, hey, we need money to redesign the church. He doesn't go to God for that. Why would he go to God for it? But we should go to God for it. So God isn't the problem. The people carrying it have turned it into capitalism.
Yeah. You know, I had a really intense plant medicine ceremony, and it was a cathartic experience. But at one point, I was brought to my knees and just looking at the ground, and just noticing that until my shadow blocked its view, even that speck of dust, you know, was being beamed on by light and beauty. And it was just this. It was very humbling to recognize that as I understood prayer and worship to look before, when people are brought to their knees and bowing down before something, I thought that was very much I thought that was them versus us, the anointed versus the general population, you know, regular people. And then what I recognized in that moment was that this is a moment for us to connect down to the earth, to look at that dust speck and to look at the smallest little thing and know that it has a purpose and it is here for a reason, and it is perfect the way that it is. And it was like, that's that religion. Religion isn't the men and the people who tell us what to think. That's the bastardization of that.
Well, that's beautiful, Steph. So now we're going to cut the camera. And when we come back, we will be talking all about pedophilia and what's going on right now with human trafficking. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast. So we just had to relocate somewhat because of the sun. But anyway, we're just at the end of this now. So, Steph, one of the things that I wanted to bring you on here for is to talk about some of the things that I posted, also the conversation that we had in the chat room. Regarding pedophilia and rape and human trafficking and everything else that's going on. And I know you have, there was a story you were telling me about a friend of yours that was abused. And so if you just kind of want to start there.
To be honest, I really don't feel like it's my place to talk about other people's trauma, so I'm going to avoid speaking about somebody that I know very well and talk about women's circles that I've been participating in now for quite some time, and how real this problem is right here in Calgary. So much so that there's an organization called Reset, which is specifically there to help women who are being trafficked in Calgary, right here. And children and people of all kinds that are being enslaved, abused, tortured, turned out, and left for whatever's left. And it's so messed up. And it's something that when I share links, when I share commentary about this issue, I'm met with so much backlash. People coming onto my page just to say, Steph, this doesn't happen, period. You're a conspiracy theorist. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm not a victim, thank God. But this is real. This is happening, and this is affecting thousands of people all over the world and right here in Calgary.
You know, human being, us as people, we're one of the most interesting creatures that ever lived. Um, I'm even, I'm not sure which I am more shocked about or upset about, that people in the right mind will come out and accuse you of being a conspiracy theorist and saying that it doesn't happen and saying that you're just here fueling the fire for no good reasons. It really truly makes me wonder, because much like the things that is going on here in Calgary, it's even worse where I come from. There was an article last year that was printed regarding sex pedophilia and in Gambia. So what happens is Gambia is in the west of Africa. I hope I get that right. My geography isn't all that great. But in the west of Africa, so what happens is kids are being trafficked from Liberia, Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, all over the region and brought into Gambia. And you know what's happening? You know who's fueling the economy, the Gambian economy? Are these whites, pedophiles whom lives here, whether it's from Canada, the Norway, America, the UK, somewhere. They go out there and you can see them. There's photograph of them hanging out with black babies on the beach. I've spent my life in Canada. I have never gone to a beach and seen a white man babysitting a black child, unless that was his family member of some kind or grandkid or something. So yeah, it is really upsetting to think that individual will attack you because you're speaking on behalf of human trafficking. Something as simple that everybody should have the information to on human trafficking. You know, like, it's crazy. So where there's something else going on in the news. King, I don't know, it's Harry. It's not Harry. One of those brothers, the oldest one.
Like from the actual royal
Yes.
family that married Meghan,
No.
Mrs. I'm not really up to date
Yeah, I'm
on.
not up to date on these people either. Hold up, let me.
I honestly don't know. Regarding pedophilia,
Regarding pedophilia
from the Epstein
with the
case,
Epstein case.
I believe that's Prince
Andrews.
Charles. Prince
Prince
Andrews? Okay, good.
Andrews.
I don't know
Right.
any.
So this morning, I'm reading this, and it says records of Prince Andrew's locations on night of molestation destroyed by police.
Why not? Why not destroy any proof that would indemnify him? Like that's exactly what they've been doing for years. That's why the leaders of massive associations that are put in where children, vulnerable children, are put in their protective custody are convicted sex offenders. I mean, if I wanted to start a non-for-profit organization, I have to get a criminal background check and I have to prove that I have not defrauded a company, that I'm not a money embezzler, and that I'm not a pervert. But the people that are in charge of like Haitian relief after that, which storm was it? A
The
massive
earthquake.
storm. Destroyed over 80% of the infrastructure. Haiti was left in absolute ruins. The leader of the organization that was meant to specifically help with displaced children was a convicted sex offender. And he's been trafficking children. So how, in a world where if I want to start a non-for-profit, I have to go through the ringer just to prove that I'm not going to abuse this system, but the people that are put in positions to hold many displaced youth is a convicted sex offender? It begs the question, is the person approving them benefiting from this? I mean, I don't know, but it begs the questions, and I would love to see the money being followed, because that would answer a lot of them.
I wouldn't put it past anything. Like I've said two things now on my social media page, is that the Western world don't care about black people. based on all of the evidence out there. And I would make even similar claim that it also doesn't give two shit about who get molested and who get human trafficked. The reason I say that is because the people in power, if they wanted to stop it, they would have stopped it. And that's not even the Haiti guy. It's not the only problem. There's so many of them. The guy who, one of the guy, the CEO of UNICEF, he's Canadian. And I just have to go to my form here very quickly because I also had an information on him as well. But he's Canadian, and he was, I think, convicted last year of similar things, pedophilia and trafficking. These are people that are put in very powerful position, and also not only that, he was given the second highest honor any Canadian can have. And I'm just so when I see these things happening over and over and over, I start to ask myself, who actually care about these things? Who really do? Who's talking about it? Who really actually care? And a lot of the time, the political leaders, they come on and they kind of talk about it, but it's in the form of a smoky mirror. They don't really mean it. They just kind of mention it just to say, oh, yeah, we're handling that too. You know? So yes, we do have a big issue at hand, and I feel like we are the only people, the people that don't have the power necessarily to do something about it, are the ones that are actually saying something about it.
Yeah.
So why are those people attacking you on your feed? Is it because they don't have the information that you have? Why would you make up something like that?
You know, I've been hearing a lot of buzzwords that have kind of erupted through this pandemic time, and it's amazing because these are psychological references that before the internet, most people wouldn't know, and you would have to be an academic to understand what these concepts are. But I'm certain that you have heard about cognitive dissonance. That is a huge buzzword that's going on right now, and basically what it means is that some people, when they learn information, they simply cannot exist in a world where they believe the container of existence lives without those things. So, sorry, that's really difficult to express. How do I language this in a way that is best? As I understand cognitive dissonance, if you understand the world to be one way, and then you learn new information about the exact same people that you think have your back and are there to defend your honor and to help you and to ensure that you have safety, are the ones who are creating systems that allow for this to happen. Those two facts cannot exist in your mind at the same time. So we create distance from that where, well, I can't live in a world where that exists. So they don't want to believe it's true because if it is, it destroys their existence. It destroys their understanding of the world. And that's traumatizing. So I think that there's a lot of backlash, mostly because a lot of people don't want to believe it's true, and also because they are not victims of abuse to be in the cycle to understand how pervasive it is.
Yeah, I believe that makes sense because we all come from different walks of life. But even at that, I still don't think that is enough reason to be so oblivious to a point, because the information is out. It takes 2 seconds to go out there and research, and one information is going to lead you to another information. How could you have all this evidence of these things that are happening to young boys, young girls, young people? But because it hadn't happened in your own family member or within your own circle, you just sort of disbelieve that it even exists. You deny the existence of these things.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? It's also because the media is very smart at discrediting ideas immediately. So if you come up with what is now believed to be a conspiracy, and a conspiracy just being that we believe that people have a secret agenda that they're not telling people, but they're acting upon. Well, the CIA coined conspiracy theorists as total wingnuts. So they've made a really good job. So now you propose an idea, a possible conspiracy, and you're now a conspiracy theorist, which also makes you a wingnut. But when conspiracies are proven right, they don't come back and say you were right the whole time. Oh my God. But also because it's been, you know, yeah, there are large conspiracy theories that suggest that many people are in cahoots about abusing children. And separate from that, there are also individuals who are abusing children all on their own without association to any cult or organization or satanic ritualistic killings or UNICEF. But as soon as you say there's a huge issue with human trafficking and it goes up the chain, they say you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, yes, and these are proven conspiracies. So to what end do we let that conspiracy theorist stigma go and start actually talking about this in a meaningful way that can help children that are marginalized? I listened to a young woman who was speaking, and she had been trafficked since before she could recall. Her first strong memory was around 4.5, 5 years old. And this continued to happen until she was about 13, and then told a friend whose mother happened to be a social worker and had talked to her about just alarming things, adults asking you to keep secrets about your body or weird things that became a red flag for her friend, who then told her mother, and her mother talked to this girl about, I think some of the experiences you have are not normal, and I'd like to talk to you about them. But this young girl was being trafficked by her own father. He had always touched her sexually. So she understood that that was love. That's just what people do in love. And so she didn't think it was wrong. And then he would go shopping with her, and he would just bring her to a shop and have her sit in the change room. And then another man would come into the change room and just grab her and walk out with her hand in hand and just take her wherever they went, and then bring her back and put her in the change room, and then the next man would come. And it didn't happen where she was like chained up in a basement being mistreated. She thought she was going off with her uncle. And she was just told this is totally normal. She was saying how many times she would go to theme parks where there's tons of adults and children and be put in line, and then the guardian with her would just say that they're going to an ice cream, going to get something, come right back, but a different man joins her in line and waits for her to go on the ride and then leaves the ride with her, and it just seems normal. But then he goes and violates her. But these a lot of people that are in these situations, they don't recognize that this is trauma because they are thinking it's synonymous with love. Some people kiss their kids on the mouth. I don't think that's a big deal. Some people kiss their kids on the cheek. My parents wouldn't even hug me. That was a really weird thing. But some people do really weird things with their kids, and then that's all they've done. The kids think it's normal, and they don't know it's abuse until later on. So yes, there are massive conspiracy theories, I believe, that are hurting and violating children in the thousands. And I also believe that there are many sick individuals that are turning out their children in a way that makes them a lot of money. And the times are getting more desperate. The economy is failing even more. And with that, there's always going to be an appetite to abuse innocence. And you know what? This is one of the biggest understandings that I've had is from that story of Cain and Abel. And I believe that what Genesis was discussing in that one story was a metaphor for the human condition, in which the cycle of abuse continues, in which when we have a world that doesn't work in our favor, that we don't understand how to recontextualize the world and our own desires, and we end up hurting our ideal. And a lot of people who are in this cycle of trauma have been abused, are not protected, are not healed, and are not helped. And they become adults with unhealed trauma who want to do the same thing that Cain did in that story, which is destroy their ideal. And when their ideal is innocence, which was taken from them, they may end up causing trauma to more innocent children, continuing this cycle. So how do we deal with this? How do we know that there are millions, billions of traumatized people in a cycle of abuse that are probably also victims of this trauma, perpetuating it again? How do we end it? How do we help them? How do we heal them? Is there room for mercy?
And mercy for who and to what extent? What you're saying is all on point. It's one big circle and a continuous circle. Now, the question that I've asked myself in the privacy of my own home is saying, well, how could we want to penalize the poor guy across the street for human trafficking or for molestation or rape or pedophilia when our leaders are being protected. Our leaders are being protected because they are recognized as the hierarchy of our society. You know, like there was a story I shared recently on my feed, which was making a comparison. It was of a gentleman who went to jail for a gram of weed, and first he was sentenced to 12 years in prison, 15 years in prison. Next, they resentenced him. The same system resentenced him to life in prison for less than a gram of weed.
And to put that in context for people who would understand the measurement of dry flower cannabis, a nickel, a nickel that you would have in your coin collection is about the same size as a gram of dry flower. So that is, you can roll
Right.
maybe a joint from that. Maybe one
Maybe.
joint. I mean, I've been
Right,
pretty
you know,
baked
yeah,
off of
right.
joints, so it works.
So,
but that's not going to hurt anybody.
So now we have that guy, and then we have some white weirdo from one of the American states who tries to sell a 4-year-old black baby. Right?
For $1,200.
Yeah.
A go.
So he tries to sell her. It's not successful. The police, when he finally get arrested, the 4-year-old girl is still in his custody. It's still there. So they arrest him with the little black baby, and he gets sentenced to 365 days in jail.
360, actually.
360.
Not even a year.
Not even a year.
You could, if you're
Let's-
black and you have weed, you're going to jail
For
for
life.
good. But if you are trying to turn out children,
And if you're white, it's so sometimes people say, "Oh, why do you say the things you say?" Well, I say the things I say based on the information that I have and the historical record that it references. How could you want me to sit here and believe that the Western world cares about black people when we can go to jail for the rest of our lives for less than a gram of weed? And you have a white guy who tried to sell one of us. If it was a white baby, that'll be a different story. But tried to sell one of us, and he doesn't even go to jail for a year. He get a break. He get to spend the 5 days to reflex, go on vacation, and chill. And when he becomes big enough in the news, once he come out of jail, wherever he comes from, he's already given $1 million, which now he can use to go on vacation.
why would he be giving money?
Well, this is what happened. I mean, people who kill black people, if you want to get rich, if you're tired of your job, right, as a police officer, and you want to get rich, and it's a terrible thing to think of, but all you got to do is kill a black person. And then what happens is, because even with the George Zimmerman case, George Zimmerman now is wealthier than he was ever going to be, due to the killing of Trayvon Martin. The police officers involved with the shooting of Michael Brown, he's sitting sweet right now.
And where are they getting money from?
The organizations, people donate to them. The so-called Blue Life Matter crew, and people are giving these people money, and they're going out on vacation. Now, there was something else I wanted to correct, because I was trying to find him. So his name, the UNICEF guy, his name is Peter John Dalglish. He was a former United Nations chief and top of UN former of UNICEF. So this guy was Canadian. And
he was considered a leader.
And he was considered a leader.
And was he convicted of sexual deviance before he was elected into these positions?
Well,
Or at what point did they know that he was a pervert and still decided to elect him as a leader?
Well, this is the thing. We don't know. But a lot of what's happening now is that a lot of sexually or people, child molesters that are known here in Canada or anywhere else in the West or down in Norway or wherever, or in this different region, when they're knowing there, my thing is that these people shouldn't be allowed to travel. If I'm in Africa and I'm known to be a sexual pedophile, they're not going to allow me on the plane to come to Canada. It's as simple as that.
Only if you have a COVID vaccine, then you can go anywhere.
Oh, really?
It's interesting. You know what? That would be interesting. We're talking about these like geo-tracking tags to see if we have anything that can be contagious. What if there was some kind of geotag that said that you were a sex offender and you cannot go away from where you are? Why are they permitted to move around? Maybe that's one of the things. You know what? I am opposed to getting any kind of microchip injected for reasons of just tracking you if you're innocent. But if you are proven guilty of something, I think you should have that bioanalytical data constantly up to a regulator.
Yeah, I think that, and that's, and this would be like my word on that is that if you're from any of these countries, you shouldn't be allowed to travel to anywhere. Like, you shouldn't be allowed to vacation to these countries that are poor. The Gambia, for instance, just to take it back there, like the poverty line, like 90% of the people are living below the poverty line. 90% of the population. So a white guy who makes $2,000 here at Starbucks a month, or make 1,000 something, and manages to book his flight, and he goes with like $500, $500 in those places, he's like a rich guy. He can have whatever he wants, right? So, and if he is an open or known pedophile or has a case, he should not be allowed to leave here and go. And I also think that our African leaders need to do a better job. Stephanie, at some point we got to wrap this thing up.
Oh my gosh, there's so much more to get into.
So much more. I got to bring it back.
Like scratch the surface of this. Yeah, you know what? Being aware, looking around and noticing what adults are with what children. If you notice a stranger walking away with a child, just ask the kid, do you know this man? Do you know this person? Because women are abusers as well. Do you know this person? Do you feel comfortable? Maybe you'll offend that adult for a moment. And if they're not a pervert, then I'm sure they'd be happy that, somebody was looking out for this kid. And, we all need to take some personal responsibility. There's something very wrong in us that we get a lot of happy chemicals in our brain when we dominate something, when we win at all costs. And our desire to win supersedes our morality in many cases. So I think it is not hard at all for any good person to be curious about the feeling of dominance and to explore that in a way that becomes insidiously perverted. And every single one of us are capable of it. You and I are both capable and able to be child molesters and perverts. And I think that the media does a really great job of making it seem like these people are monsters and they're not human, but that's the problem. Every single one of us is capable. Every one of us could be that person. So we need to appreciate that we're all capable of it, and we need to have compassion for the fact that we are also all capable of being hurt. I mean, we were talking about religion before. One of the biggest understandings I got just from the Adam and Eve concept, they talk about eating from the tree of life and recognizing their nakedness. And we've understood that to be shame around sexuality. But what I believe that means is that in observing my nakedness, it actually made me aware of my vulnerability. And by observing your nakedness, I was able to see how alike we are. So I know what hurts me hurts you, which means I can hurt you. That is the power of humanity, that we know how to hurt each other, and we do it constantly. So we need to see that metaphor for what it was, that the tree of life is giving us, the tree of knowledge is giving us information that we can all be capable of great things and horrible things. And we need to take personal responsibility for ourselves and for everybody that we know.
Absolutely, Steph. I want to thank you once again for being here. This has been a good conversation. Again, there's so much to go into.
Yeah, next time we should do like a 3-hour Joe Rogan styles conversation.
We'll do that.
We'll smoke some weed, have good conversation. I promise.
If I had an assistant that was driving the vehicle, I think we'll probably have some liquor here. But
then we wouldn't have it at 10 a.m. I guess.
Exactly. So I want to thank you for being here, and again, being a guest on the show. You have been a guest a few times now. And I've always loved just bringing you on and chopping it up and having different conversations. So And that's the whole idea. This is like this podcast is for the small people, the small guys, the voices that will never be heard. And so it's our opportunity to get our voices and opinions out there, and hopefully that makes the world better. And yeah, any final words?
I just want to thank you for wanting to have conversations that are difficult to have, and to put it out there, because that does kind of put a target on people or allows someone to say whatever they want about you. But I'm really proud of all the work that you've been doing. I think that this COVID time has been a blessing in disguise for a lot of us, allowing us to think, what do we want and what do we want to do? And I know that you have just been learning more, mastering your skills, exploring new concepts, meeting new people, growing as an individual, sharing more history, trying to educate people. I mean, some of the most honorable things I could possibly imagine any individual trying to do, and you are doing it. And I'm so happy that you're leading by example.
Yo, my head just went like boom, like, yo, stop it, stop it.
But you know what? It's all coming from a good heart, and that's what I really appreciate and what we need more of. So thank you. And fuck, you're doing a good job, man. I'm so excited for you.
All right, guys, with that said, this is my friend, good friend of mine, and a model as well, Stephanie Mosher. And thank you so much for tuning in. And you will have all of her link there in the description where you'll be able to find her. My name is Rico Bottle. Be sure to support the channel. I mean, I can do this thing all day, but if you guys are not commenting, you're not liking, you're not getting engaged, you're not having a conversation, I don't know. So,
and we want to hear. Let's get some discussion going. Maybe we have a follow-up discussion based on some of the comments that we get about this.
So if you are against what we're saying, I'm not trying to say shut up. No. I want you to keep talking, because, through conversation, we can learn from each other. And if I'm squinting my eyes right now, the sun is beating me. But anyway, so yeah, we want to encourage you to come to the show and get interested. Let's have conversation. Let's share information. I would like to know where you're getting your information from, and why are you basing your beliefs on what you're basing it off of.